What would you do if your dying son called a stranger? Mommy and that stranger looked exactly like your deceased wife. When Ryan Thompson rushed his feverish 7-year-old to the emergency room, he had no idea this night would uncover a family secret that would change everything. The rain hammered against the windshield of Ryan's Honda Civic as he sped through the empty Seattle streets at 11:47 p.m. In the back seat, Jake lay unconscious across the leather seats, his small body burning with a fever that had climbed past 104 degrees and refused to break, despite 3 days of every remedy Ryan could think of. "Hold on, buddy," Ryan whispered, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "We're almost there." Jake's lips moved, constantly whispering words no one could understand. His 7-year-old face was flushed crimson, and his eyes rolled beneath half-closed lids, seeing things that existed only in the fevered landscape of delirium. Ryan's chest tightened with a fear so profound it made his hands shake. This was exactly how it had started with Lily. 3 years ago, his wife had complained of a headache during dinner. Nothing serious, she'd said. Just stress from her job at the marketing firm. But by midnight, she was burning with fever, and by dawn, she was gone. Bacterial meningitis, the doctors had explained later. Sometimes it moved that fast. Sometimes there was nothing anyone could do. Ryan couldn't lose Jake, too. Not his little boy. Not the only piece of Lily he had left. Seattle General Hospital loomed ahead, its emergency room entrance blazing with harsh fluorescent light. Ryan screeched to a halt in the ambulance bay, not caring about parking regulations or towing zones. He flung open the back door and scooped Jake into his arms, feeling how alarmingly light his son had become over the past few days. "Help," Ryan called out as he burst through the sliding glass doors. "I need help, my son." A nurse at the reception desk looked up, her expression shifting immediately from routine professionalism to urgent concern when she saw Jake's condition. She was older, with silver hair, and kind eyes that had seen too many emergencies to waste time on unnecessary questions. "How long has he been like this?" she asked, already moving from behind the desk. 3 days. The fever won't break. He's barely conscious, and he keeps saying things that don't make sense. Ryan's voice cracked. "Please, you have to help him." The nurse guided them quickly down a brightly lit corridor lined with examination rooms. "Room 304, she said, pushing open a door. "The doctor will be right in." Ryan laid Jake gently on the hospital bed, the boy's small body barely making a dent in the crisp white sheets. Jake's breathing was shallow and rapid, his skin hot and dry to the touch. His dark hair was matted with sweat, and his usually bright blue eyes remained closed, occasionally fluttering, as he murmured incomprehensible words. "Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel." Ryan pulled a chair close to the bed and took Jake's small hand in both of his own. The boy's fingers were burning hot, and Ryan felt tears threaten behind his eyes. He'd been a single father for 3 years now, ever since that terrible night when Lily didn't come home from work. A drunk driver had run a red light and hit her car head-on just 6 blocks from their house. She'd died instantly, the paramedics said. No suffering. But Ryan had suffered plenty for both of them. He'd quit his dream of opening his own accounting firm and taken a stable job with a large corporation instead. Jake needed stability, security routine. Ryan had learned to braid hair from YouTube videos, to make pancakes in butterfly shapes the way Lily used to read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. He'd become both father and mother, and most days he felt like he was failing at both. Jake stirred slightly, his eyes opening just a crack. "Daddy," he whispered, his voice so weak Ryan had to lean close to hear him. "I'm here, buddy. We're at the hospital. The doctors are going to make you feel better, okay?" Jake nodded slightly, then closed his eyes again. Ryan watched the steady rise and fall of his son's chest. Each breath a small miracle that meant Jake was still fighting still here. The door opened behind him, and Ryan heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching. "Mr. Thompson," a woman's voice said. "I'm Dr. Walsh. I'll be taking care of Jake tonight." Ryan turned around, and his world tilted sideways. "Doctor." Sarah Walsh stood in the doorway holding a medical chart, and for a moment Ryan thought he was hallucinating. The same auburn hair catching the fluorescent light pulled back in a loose braid, the way Lily used to wear it when she was concentrating on something important. The same soft curve of her jaw, the same delicate bone structure, the exact same way of standing with her weight slightly on her left foot. Ryan's mouth fell open. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Dr. Walsh moved forward with practiced calm, her green eyes scanning Jake's flushed face with professional concern. She was wearing standard hospital scrubs and a white coat, a stethoscope draped around her neck, but everything about her posture, her movements, even the way she breathed was achingly familiar. "How long has he been running this fever?" she asked, and even her voice carried that same quiet steadiness that Lily used to have when she was focused on solving a problem. Ryan stared at her, unable to process what he was seeing. It was impossible. People didn't just look this much alike unless they were related. Unless they were... "Mr. Thompson," Dr. Walsh said again gently. "I know this is scary, but I need you to focus for Jake's sake." "How long has the fever been this high?" 3 days. Ryan finally managed his voice hoarse. "It started Sunday night. Just a low-grade fever, maybe 101. But it kept climbing, and nothing I tried would bring it down. Tylenol, ibuprofen, cool baths. Nothing worked." Dr. Walsh nodded, making notes on Jake's chart. She moved to the bedside and placed her hand gently on Jake's forehead, checking his temperature by touch the way experienced pediatricians did. Her touch was gentle, careful, exactly the way Lily used to check Jake's temperature when he was little. "Has he been eating or drinking?" she asked. "Very little. Maybe a few sips of water here and there. He threw up twice yesterday, and since then he's barely been conscious." Dr. Walsh's expression grew more concerned. She pulled a small flashlight from her pocket and gently lifted Jake's eyelids, checking his pupils. The light caused Jake to stir slightly, and his eyes fluttered open. And then, in a moment that would change everything, Jake looked directly at Dr. Walsh. His fevered gaze focused on her face, and a small, peaceful smile crossed his cracked lips. "Mommy," he whispered. His voice filled with such longing and recognition that Ryan felt his chest constrict. Dr. Walsh froze. The flashlight trembled in her hand as she stared down at Jake, and for a split second her professional composure cracked. Ryan saw surprise flash across her features, followed by something deeper confusion, recognition, something she couldn't quite name. "Mommy's here." Jake continued, his voice gaining strength. "I knew you'd come back. I knew you wouldn't stay gone forever." Ryan's arms tightened around himself instinctively, as if holding himself together could somehow protect Jake from the confusion that was about to follow. But Dr. Walsh didn't flinch. After that momentary lapse, she moved forward with renewed focus, though Ryan noticed her hands were shaking slightly. "Jake, can you hear me?" she said softly. "My name is Dr. Walsh. I'm here to help you feel better." Jake's eyes remained fixed on her face, and he smiled more broadly. "I missed you so much, Mommy. Daddy's been sad, but you're back now, so everything will be okay." Dr. Walsh glanced at Ryan, and for the first time he saw uncertainty in her eyes. Professional uncertainty mixed with something personal she was trying hard to suppress. "Does Jake have a history of hallucinations?" she asked quietly. "Any underlying conditions I should know about?" Ryan shook his head, running his hand through his hair. "No, nothing like this. His mother, my wife, she died 3 years ago. Car accident. Jake was 4. He barely remembers her anymore, or at least that's what I thought." He looked directly at Dr. Walsh, really studying her face for the first time. "But you look exactly like her. I mean exactly. It's not just me seeing things, right?" Dr. Walsh's professional mask slipped for just a second, and Ryan saw something flicker across her expression. Not just surprise, but recognition of something she'd been trying to avoid acknowledging since she'd walked into the room. "I've noticed you staring," she said quietly. "It wouldn't be the first time someone's told me I look like someone they knew. But this—" She glanced at Jake, who was watching her with that strange, peaceful expression so different from the agitated delirium he'd been in just moments before. "This is different." She pulled up a chair and sat down so she was at eye level with Ryan, her medical training warring with something more personal and complex. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Jake's fever is dangerously high, and the fact that he's having these specific delusions is deeply concerning. But there's something else. Something I need to tell you, though I'm not sure how." Ryan felt his heart begin to pound. "What? What is it?" Walsh took a breath, as if steadying herself, before diving into deep water. "I was adopted. I grew up in foster care until I was 12, then got placed with a good family here in the city. But before that, I was at St. Mary's Children's Home, and according to my file, which I only saw when I turned 18 and requested my records, I wasn't alone when they found me." She paused, and Ryan could see the weight of what she was about to say. "I had a twin sister. We were separated when we were 2 years old. Different families adopted us. I never knew her name, never knew where she went. The records were sealed, and I was told that contact wasn't possible. The room seemed to tilt again, but this time it was different." Ryan felt like he was falling and standing still at the same time. "Lily grew up in foster care," he heard himself say the words coming from somewhere far away. "She told me she'd been at St. Mary's when she was little. She never knew her birth family, never knew if she had siblings." His voice dropped to a whisper. She always said she felt like something was missing, like she was supposed to be half of something whole. Dr. Walsh's hand moved unconsciously to her left shoulder, pressing against the fabric of her white coat. The gesture was so automatic, so unthinking, that Ryan knew what it meant before she even spoke. "Lily had a birthmark," Ryan said slowly, "on her left shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. She used to joke that it was her only clue about where she came from, the only thing that made her unique in a world full of disposable children." Dr. Walsh closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "I have the same mark," she whispered. "Exactly the same place, exactly the same shape." The machines around Jake beeped steadily. Marking time in a moment that seemed to exist outside of it. Ryan looked at this woman who was a stranger, and not a stranger who carried his wife's face and mannerisms like an echo across time, and felt the universe rearranging itself around them. Jake stirred between them, still smiling in his fevered sleep, as if he'd known all along what the adults were just beginning to understand. Dr. Walsh stood abruptly, her professional mode snapping back into place like armor. She was a doctor first, and there was a sick child who needed her care, regardless of whatever impossible coincidence had brought them to this moment. "We need to run a complete blood panel immediately," she said, moving toward the door and calling for a nurse. "And we'll need to test for genetic markers. If Jake and I share DNA, it could explain certain susceptibilities, help us understand what's happening to his immune response." But Ryan could see her hands shaking slightly as she wrote orders on Jake's chart. He could see the way she kept glancing back at Jake, then at him, as if trying to reconcile the impossible reality of their situation. "Dr. Walsh," Ryan said quietly. She turned, and for a moment the professional mask dropped completely. She looked young, vulnerable, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd just discovered. What if it's true? She asked. What if Lily was really my sister? What if we spent 30 years living in the same city, never knowing, never meeting, then Jake is your nephew? Ryan said simply. And that little boy who's been asking for his mummy just found the next best thing. Dr. Walsh's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. I need to focus on treating him first. Everything else, all of this, we'll figure it out later. But as she turned back to Jake's bedside, Ryan saw the way she looked at his son. Not just as a patient anymore, but as family. As the bridge between the sister she'd never known and the life she'd never imagined. The blood work and initial genetic testing would take 6 hours. 6 hours of waiting, watching, hoping that Jake's small body could fight off whatever was attacking his immune response. But those tests would confirm what their hearts already knew, and they would reveal something far more dangerous about Jake's condition. Something that would require more than medicine to heal. Don't go anywhere. What happens next will challenge everything they think they know about healing family and the mysterious ways that love finds a path back home. The DNA results came back at 5:47 a.m., just as the first grey light of dawn was creeping through the hospital room windows. Dr. Walsh returned with the lab report. Her face pale but determined, and Ryan could see the answer in her eyes before she spoke a word. The genetic markers confirm it, she said quietly, sitting down heavily in the chair beside Jake's bed. Lily and I shared 99.9% identical DNA. We were definitely twins, definitely separated at birth. Jake had been sleeping more peacefully since Dr. Walsh arrived, his fever dropping slightly from its dangerous peak, but his blood work told a different story. His white blood cell count was critically low, his immune response completely shut down. By all medical standards, he should be getting worse, not better. There's something else. Dr. Walsh continued studying Jake's chart with growing concern. I've run every test I can think of. Bacterial cultures, viral panels, autoimmune markers. Everything's coming back negative. There's no infection, no obvious cause for his immune response to crash like this. Ryan felt ice forming in his stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying that, medically speaking, there's no reason for Jake to be this sick. His body is essentially giving up, and I can't figure out why. Dr. Walsh was quiet for a long moment, watching Jake sleep. When she spoke again, her voice was different, less clinical, more personal. I specialize in pediatric medicine, but I also trained in trauma therapy. Sometimes children who've experienced severe emotional trauma develop what we call psychosomatic responses. The mind and body are connected in ways we don't fully understand, and unresolved grief can manifest physically. She turned to look at Ryan directly. Jake, seeing me someone who looks exactly like his mother, it might have triggered something his subconscious has been holding on to for 3 years. Something he never properly processed about losing Lily. Ryan stared at her. You're saying he's making himself sick because he thinks he can have his mother back? Not consciously, but trauma, especially in children, can create powerful associations. If part of his mind believes that I'm Lily, that she somehow came back, his body might be responding to that psychological conflict. Doctor! Walsh stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city waking up below. I need to tell you about myself, about why I became a doctor, why I chose pediatrics. She was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. I grew up feeling incomplete, not just because I was an orphan, but because I always had this sense that I was supposed to be part of something bigger. I used to have dreams about another little girl who looked just like me, but I thought they were just fantasies. She turned back to Ryan. I threw myself into my studies, into my career, because work was the only thing that made me feel valuable. I've never married, never had serious relationships. I told myself it was because I was too focused on medicine, but the truth is I've always felt like I was waiting for something, like I was incomplete. Lily felt that way too, Ryan said softly. She used to say she felt like she was missing her other half. I thought she just meant family in general, but maybe she meant me. Dr. Walsh's voice was thick with emotion. We lived in the same city for 30 years, Ryan. We probably passed each other on the street, stood in line at the same grocery stores, breathed the same air, and never knew. Jake stirred slightly, murmuring something in his sleep. Both adults moved closer to the bed. What did he say to Walsh asked. Ryan leaned down, listening. He's singing, he whispered. It's a song Lily used to sing to him. She made it up, called it the Butterfly Song. Something about flying away and always finding your way back home. Dr. Walsh's breath caught. I know that song. Ryan looked at her in shock. I've been humming it for weeks, she continued, her voice barely audible. I don't know where it came from. I thought maybe I heard it on the radio, but I couldn't place it. It just felt familiar. They stood there in the quiet hospital room as Jake continued to hum the melody in his sleep, and Ryan felt the universe shifting around them again. Whatever was happening here went beyond medicine, beyond coincidence. It was something deeper, something that connected the three of them in ways science couldn't explain. I want to try something, Dr. Walsh said suddenly. It's unconventional, and I'll need your permission, but I think it might help Jake process whatever he's holding on to. What kind of something guided memory therapy? I want to use hypnotic techniques to help Jake access his memories of Lily safely. If he's been carrying unprocessed grief, we need to help him work through it. And maybe... She paused, vulnerable again. Maybe by learning about Lily through his memories, I can understand the sister I never got to know. Ryan felt a chill of fear. Is it safe? With children who've experienced trauma, it can be very effective. We're not trying to trick him or manipulate his memories. We're just giving him a safe space to explore them, to say things he might have been holding inside. Ryan looked at his son, so small and fragile in the hospital bed, fighting a battle that traditional medicine couldn't touch. Every instinct screamed against experimenting with Jake's mind. But his son was dying, and conventional treatment wasn't working. Okay, he said finally. Okay, do it. The first hypnotherapy session took place the following morning. Dr. Walsh had arranged for them to use a special pediatric room designed to be less intimidating than a standard medical environment. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and walls painted with cheerful murals of animals and forests. Jake was awake, but still weak, his fever hovering just below dangerous levels. Dr. Walsh sat close to his bedside, speaking in a gentle, rhythmic voice that seemed to ease some of the tension in his small body. Jake, I want you to close your eyes and think about a time when you felt really safe and happy, she began. Can you think of a time like that? Jake nodded slowly, his breathing becoming deeper and more regular. Tell me about that time, Jake. What do you see? I see. Mommy, Jake, said, his voice dreamy and distant. We're in the kitchen and she's making pancakes. But not regular pancakes, butterfly pancakes. Ryan felt his throat tighten. Lily's butterfly pancakes had been Jake's favorite, made by pouring the batter in a special pattern that created wings when it cooked. What does Mommy look like when she makes the pancakes? Dr. Walsh asked, her voice carefully neutral. She has pretty hair that smells like flowers and she hums while she cooks. She lets me help even though I always make a mess. She says messes are just proof that love is happening. Dr. Walsh glanced at Ryan, who nodded. Those were Lily's exact words. What else do you remember about Mommy? For the next 20 minutes, Jake talked. He described bedtime routines where Lily would read stories with different voices for each character, making him giggle until he could barely breathe. He talked about Sunday mornings when she would dance around the kitchen to music. Only she could hear her hair spinning around her shoulders like a red-gold cloud. He remembered the time she took him to the zoo and they spent 2 hours watching the penguins because Jake was fascinated by how they took care of each other. He described her laugh, her hugs, the way she would brush his hair back from his forehead when he was sick, exactly the gesture Dr. Walsh had made unconsciously the day before. She used to sing to me. Jake continued, his voice growing stronger. The butterfly song about going far away but always coming home to the people who love you. She said no matter where she went, she would always find her way back to me. Doctor. Walsh's hands were clenched tightly in her lap, and Ryan could see tears streaming silently down her face. She was learning about the sister she'd never known through the innocent memories of a child, seeing Lily's personality, her warmth, her way of loving. What else did Mommy like to do? Dr. Walsh asked, her voice thick with emotion. She liked to paint pictures, but she wasn't very good at it. Jake giggled. She painted a picture of our family once and Daddy looked like a stick with hair, but she hung it on the refrigerator anyway because she said it was perfect. Ryan remembered that painting. It had been terrible by any objective standard, but Lily had been so proud of it. He'd kept it on the refrigerator until the day she died, and it was still tucked away in a box somewhere in their apartment. She liked to read books that made her cry. Jake continued. Happy crying, she called it. She said some stories were so beautiful they had to leak out through your eyes. Did Mommy ever tell you she loved you every day? She said I was her sunshine baby, and that even when clouds came, the sunshine was still there behind them, waiting to come out again. When the session ended and Jake drifted into genuine sleep, not fevered unconsciousness, but real restorative rest. Dr. Walsh sat very still, tears flowing freely down her face. She loved him so completely, she whispered. I could hear it in every word, every memory. She wasn't just his mother, she was his whole world. Ryan felt his own tears breaking free. She would have loved you too if she'd known you existed. She always said she felt like she was missing something important. Maybe that something was you. I'll never know her, Dr. Walsh said, her voice breaking. My sister, my twin. But through him I can see who she was, what she meant. Something extraordinary happened over the next several days. As Jake shared more memories of Lily during their therapy sessions, his medical condition began to stabilize. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but measurably. His fever dropped degree by degree. His white blood cell count crept upward. His appetite returned in small increments. But something else was happening too. Dr. Walsh began to change. She started wearing her hair differently, pulled back in a loose braid, the way Lily used to wear it. She found herself humming melodies she didn't remember learning, the butterfly song, other half-remembered lullabies that seemed to come from somewhere deep in her subconscious. When she sat with Jake during his therapy sessions, her movements took on a quality that Ryan recognized, gestures and mannerisms that were pure Lily. At first he thought she was doing it consciously, trying to comfort Jake by mimicking his mother, but then he'd catch her in unguarded moments, adjusting her hair, tilting her head, while thinking, scowling at something Jake said. And he realized she wasn't aware of it. The line between learning about Lily and becoming Lily was blurring in ways that made Ryan's skin prickle with something between hope and fear. Dr. Margaret Chen, the head of pediatrics, noticed the changes too. She cornered Dr. Walsh after rounds one morning, her expression stern. Emma, what exactly is going on with the Thompson boy? Dr. Walsh. Emma looked up from Jake's chart, trying to maintain her professional composure. He's responding well to treatment. The fever's down, blood count's improving. That's not what I'm asking, and you know it. The nursing staff is talking. They say you're spending an unusual amount of time with this family. Off-hours visits, extended therapy sessions. Some are suggesting your involvement has become personal. Emma felt her defenses rise. Everything I've done has been in Jake's best medical interest. His recovery has been remarkable. His recovery has been medically inexplicable, Dr. Chen interrupted. Which is exactly why I'm concerned. You're a brilliant pediatrician, Emma, but you're also human. And humans sometimes make decisions with their hearts instead of their heads. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that you might be too close to this case, that your objectivity has been compromised. Emma wanted to argue, but she couldn't. Dr. Chen was right. Her objectivity had been compromised the moment she realized Jake might be her nephew, the moment she started learning about the sister she'd never known through a child's innocent memories. I want you to transfer Jake's primary care to Dr. Rodriguez. Dr. Chen continued. You can remain as a consulting physician, but I think some distance would be appropriate. Emma felt panic rise in her chest. Dr. Chen, Jake is responding to our current treatment plan. Changing doctors now could set back his recovery. Dr. Rodriguez is perfectly capable. And frankly, Emma, I'm concerned about you too. You've been here 18 hours a day for the past week. You look exhausted. When's the last time you went home, had a real meal, got a full night's sleep? Emma couldn't answer because she couldn't remember. Ever since she'd discovered that Jake was her nephew, that Lily had been her twin sister, she'd been practically living at the hospital. Not just because of Jake's medical needs, but because being with him and Ryan felt like being part of a family she'd never had. Take the weekend, Dr. Chen said, her tone gentler now. Go home, get some rest, and come back Monday with fresh perspective. Dr. Rodriguez will take excellent care of Jake. Emma wanted to protest further, but she could see that Dr. Chen's mind was made up. And worse, she could see the concern in the older woman's eyes. The concern of a mentor who'd watched Emma work herself to exhaustion for years, always taking on more cases, more responsibility, more emotional investment than was healthy. That evening, Emma found herself in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m, nursing a cup of coffee and staring at nothing. The weekend stretched ahead of her like a vast, empty space she didn't know how to fill. Ryan found her there looking as lost as she felt. Heard about Dr. Chen's decision, he said, sitting across from her. Jake's been asking for you all evening. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to get so complicated. When I'm with him, when I'm hearing his memories of Lily, I feel something I've never felt before. Like I'm remembering things I never experienced. Like somewhere deep down I knew her all along. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. Maybe you did. Maybe identical twins have some kind of connection that doesn't disappear just because they're separated. Emma looked at their joined hands, feeling the warmth and strength in Ryan's fingers. I've been thinking about what you said about Lily feeling incomplete. I've felt that way my whole life, Ryan, like I was supposed to be part of something bigger. And now I think I know what I was missing. Not just Lily, but this. She gestured between them toward the hospital room where Jake was sleeping. Family. People who care about each other, not because they have to, but because they choose to. Ryan squeezed her hand. You don't have to disappear from our lives just because Dr. Chen thinks you're too involved. You're Jake's aunt. That's not something that goes away. Emma felt tears threaten again. What if I can't save him? What if whatever's wrong with him is beyond medical treatment? Then we figure it out together. All 3 of us. Despite Dr. Chen's orders, Emma couldn't stay away completely. She found herself visiting Jake during her off hours, sitting with him, while Ryan grabbed food from the cafeteria or made phone calls to his office. She brought a small notebook and began writing down everything Jake told her about Lily, not just during the therapy sessions, but the casual memories that came up in conversation. She learned that Lily had painted her toenails different colors when she was happy, that she cried during commercials with puppies, that she had a terrible habit of singing off-key in the car, but did it anyway because it made Jake laugh, that she collected smooth stones from beaches they visited, keeping them in a jar on the kitchen windowsill. Emma learned that Lily had wanted more children, but had struggled with fertility issues, that she'd dreamed of big family dinners where everyone talked over each other and laughed too loud, that she'd felt like she was missing something important, but could never put her finger on what it was. She used to stare at herself in the mirror sometimes. Jake told Emma one afternoon, while Ryan was meeting with hospital administrators about insurance. Not like she was being vain, but like she was looking for someone else in her face. Like she expected to see a different person looking back. Emma's breath caught. She'd done the same thing her entire life, staring at her own reflection and feeling like something was wrong, like the image in the mirror was incomplete. Did she ever talk about having brothers or sisters? She said she wished she had a sister to share secrets with, someone who would understand her without having to explain everything. She said twins must be so lucky because they never have to be alone. Emma had to excuse herself to cry in the bathroom after that conversation. Over the 2 weeks that followed, a strange routine developed. Dr. Rodriguez handled Jake's primary medical care, but Emma remained involved as a consulting physician. More importantly, she became part of the family's daily rhythm in a way that felt natural for all of them. She would stop by in the mornings before her rounds to check on Jake, bringing him books from the hospital library or small puzzles to keep his mind occupied. She ate lunch with Ryan in the cafeteria, and they would talk about Jake's progress, about Lily, about the strange circumstances that had brought them together. In the evenings after her official shift ended, Emma would return to Jake's room for what she privately called memory time. Sometimes they did formal therapy sessions, helping Jake process his grief and confusion. But more often they just talked about his school friends, his favorite movies, his dreams for the future. And always woven throughout these conversations were stories about Lily. Jake's memories of his mother painted a picture of a woman who had loved completely and lived fully, despite feeling incomplete. Emma found herself falling in love with the sister she'd never known, and grieving for the relationship they'd never had. "I've been thinking," Ryan said one evening as they sat beside Jake's bed, watching him sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, "about names, about calling you Dr. Walsh all the time. Jake calls you that, but it feels too formal for family." Emma looked at him surprised. "What do you suggest?" "What if he called you Aunt Emma? Would that be okay with you?" Emma felt her chest tighten with emotion. "I'd like that. I'd like that very much." When Jake woke up the next morning, Ryan explained the new arrangement. Jake considered it seriously the way children do when faced with important decisions. "Aunt Emma," he said, testing the words. "Yeah, I like that. It sounds right." And it did sound right. More right than anything Emma had experienced in her 32 years of life. But their growing sense of family was about to be tested in ways none of them could have anticipated. Have you ever felt like you were waiting for your life to really begin? Like you were incomplete until someone specific walked into your world? Drop a comment below and share your story. 3 weeks after Jake's initial admission to the hospital, he was finally strong enough to be discharged. His fever had been gone for over a week. His blood counts were back to normal ranges, and his energy was returning daily. Medically speaking, he was a success story, a child who had recovered from a mysterious illness that should have been fatal. But the real healing everyone understood had come from something beyond medicine. "I want you to keep the therapy sessions going," Dr. Rodriguez told Ryan as they completed the discharge paperwork. "Whatever Dr. Walsh has been doing, it's working. Jake has processed more grief in 3 weeks than some children manage in years of traditional counseling." Emma stood in the background, holding Jake's hand while he bounced excitedly about going home. She tried to maintain professional distance, but Ryan could see the attachment in her eyes, the way she looked at Jake like he was her own child. "Will you still visit us, Jake?" asked Emma as they gathered his few belongings. "At home, I mean, Dad makes terrible pancakes, and I want to show you my rock collection." Emma glanced at Ryan uncertainly. They hadn't discussed what would happen after the discharge, how their relationship would continue outside the structured environment of the hospital. "I'd love to see your rock collection," Emma said carefully. "If your dad thinks that's okay." "Of course it's okay," Ryan said quickly. Perhaps too quickly. "You're family now. Family visits each other." But as they walked out of the hospital together, Ryan felt a complicated mix of emotions. Gratitude for Emma's role in saving Jake's life. Affection for the woman who'd helped them both process their grief. And underneath it all, something he was afraid to acknowledge. An attraction to Emma that had nothing to do with her resemblance to Lily and everything to do with who she was as her own person. The first dinner at Ryan's apartment was awkward. Ryan had attempted to cook chicken, but it was dry and overcooked. Jake spilled juice on the carpet within the first 10 minutes. Emma seemed unsure of her role. Was she a guest, a family member, or something in between? But then Jake dragged Emma to his room to show her his collection of rocks and shells from various family trips, chattering excitedly about where each one came from and why it was special. Ryan heard Emma's genuine laughter echoing from down the hall, and something inside him relaxed. When she returned to the kitchen, she rolled up the sleeves of her sweater and began helping him salvage dinner, moving around the small space with an ease that felt earned rather than borrowed. "He's an amazing kid," Emma said, chopping vegetables while Ryan attempted to rescue the chicken. "You've done an incredible job raising him. Lily did most of the heavy lifting the first 4 years," Ryan replied honestly. "I'm just trying not to mess up what she started." Emma was quiet for a moment, focused on her task. "I think she'd be proud of both of you. The way you've taken care of each other, the way you've honored her memory while still moving forward. It takes courage." Ryan looked at her, noting the way the kitchen light caught the red highlights in her hair, the gentle concentration on her face as she worked. She was beautiful, but it was a different kind of beauty than Lily's. Where Lily had been vibrant and quick to laugh, Emma was thoughtful and steady. Where Lily had been impulsive and emotional, Emma was careful and measured. They were twins, but they were also completely different people. After dinner, they settled in the living room while Jake worked on homework at the kitchen table. The comfortable silence of people who'd been through something intense together and found their way to the other side. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said finally. "About that night in the hospital when Jake first called me Mommy. Did you ever, even for a moment, did you think I was her?" Ryan considered the question carefully. "No," he said honestly. "I saw the resemblance immediately and it was shocking. But I never thought you were Lily. You're too different in all the ways that matter." Emma looked relieved and disappointed at the same time. But Ryan continued. "There were moments when you'd do something, a gesture, an expression, and I'd feel this weird sense of déjà vu. Not because you were mimicking her, but because you'd somehow tapped into something that was essentially hers. The twin connection you mentioned, maybe. Or maybe just the fact that you were both raised by the same universe, shaped by similar circumstances, even though you never knew each other." Emma smiled, and it was her own smile, not an echo of anyone else's. "I've been thinking about that a lot, about how Jake needed to believe I was Lily just for a little while, and how maybe that was okay. Maybe that was exactly what needed to happen for him to heal." Ryan felt something shift in the air between them, a recognition of shared understanding. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly, glancing toward the kitchen to make sure Jake wasn't listening. "These past few weeks spending time with you, watching you with Jake, I've started to have feelings that have nothing to do with your resemblance to Lily." Emma's breath caught. "Ryan, I know it's complicated. I know the situation is impossible, but I needed you to know that when I look at you, I see Emma Walsh. I see a brilliant doctor who saved my son's life. I see a woman who's kind and funny and strong. I see someone I could fall in love with if we were different people in different circumstances." Emma stared at him, and Ryan could see the war happening behind her eyes. Professional ethics, personal boundaries, the complicated grief they both carried. "I feel it too," she whispered. "And it terrifies me. What if it's just transference? What if I'm just a substitute?" "You're not a substitute," Ryan said firmly. "You're you. And that's more than enough." They moved toward each other at the same time, drawn by something neither could fully explain or resist. Their first kiss was tentative, careful, filled with the weight of everything they'd been through together, and everything they didn't dare hope for. When they separated, both were crying. "This is going to be complicated," Emma said. "Everything worthwhile is complicated," Ryan replied. From the kitchen, Jake's voice called out cheerfully. "Are you guys done being weird? I need help with my math homework." They broke apart laughing despite the intensity of the moment. "We'll figure it out," Ryan said quietly. "Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together." But neither of them realized that their growing relationship was about to face challenges that would test everything they'd built. The hospital gossip started within days of Jake's discharge. Nurses who'd observed Emma's emotional investment in the Thompson family began talking. Dr. Chen heard whispers about the pediatrician who'd become too involved with a patient's family, who was spotted having dinner at their apartment, who seemed to have forgotten the professional boundaries that were supposed to govern doctor-patient relationships. The formal complaint came from Dr. Patricia Williams, a colleague who'd always resented Emma's rapid advancement through the pediatric department. She filed a report with the hospital's ethics committee, alleging that Dr. Walsh had engaged in inappropriate personal relationships with a patient's family and had allowed her emotional involvement to compromise her medical judgment. Emma received the notification on a Tuesday morning delivered by a hospital administrator who looked uncomfortable with the entire situation. "The ethics committee will review your case next week," the woman explained. "You'll have an opportunity to present your defense, but until then you're suspended from active patient care pending the investigation." Emma stared at the official letterhead, feeling her carefully constructed world crashing down around her. "This is about Jake Thompson, isn't it? I'm not at liberty to discuss the specific allegations, but yes, your relationship with the Thompson family has raised concerns about professional boundaries." Emma's hands shook as she cleared out her office, packing years of medical textbooks and personal items into cardboard boxes. Colleagues she'd worked with for years avoided eye contact in the hallways. The few who did speak to her offered awkward expressions of support, but she could see the questions in their eyes. Ryan was waiting for her in the hospital parking garage when she finally emerged with her boxes. I heard he said, simply taking the heavy box from her arms. "I'm so sorry, Emma. This is my fault. I should have been more careful about—" "It's not your fault," Emma interrupted. "We both made choices. We both knew this might happen." But as they loaded her belongings into his car, Emma felt the weight of everything she'd sacrificed settling on her shoulders. Her medical career, her professional reputation, her financial security, all of it was at risk because she'd fallen in love with a patient's father and his son. The ethics hearing took place in a sterile conference room on the hospital's administrative floor. Emma sat at one end of a long table facing a panel of 5 senior physicians and administrators. Dr. Chen sat among them, her expression carefully neutral. Dr. Williams presented the case against Emma with clinical precision. Excessive emotional involvement with a patient. Violation of professional boundaries. Questionable medical decisions based on personal rather than clinical considerations. Dr. Walsh spent an unprecedented amount of time with the Thompson family, Dr. Williams stated. She conducted therapy sessions that fell outside her area of expertise. She visited them during off hours and eventually began a personal relationship with the patient's father. This represents a serious breach of medical ethics and professional standards. When it was Emma's turn to respond, she stood on shaking legs, looking at the faces of colleagues who would determine her professional future. "Everything I did was in Jake Thompson's best medical interest," she said quietly. "He was dying from a condition that traditional medicine couldn't diagnose or treat. The therapy sessions I conducted were within my training and expertise. And yes, I became emotionally invested in his recovery, but that investment led to a breakthrough that saved his life. She paused, gathering courage for what she was about to admit. It's true that my involvement became personal. It's true that I crossed professional boundaries. But Jake Thompson isn't just any patient to me. Through DNA testing conducted for legitimate medical reasons, we discovered that Jake's deceased mother was my twin sister separated from me at birth. Jake is my nephew, the only family I've ever known. A murmur went through the room. Dr. Chen's carefully neutral expression cracked slightly, showing surprise, and something that might have been understanding. I don't regret the choices I made. Emma continued. I regret that they've led to this hearing, but I don't regret saving a child's life or finding my family. If that makes me unsuitable to practice medicine in this institution, then so be it. The deliberation lasted 2 hours. When the committee returned, Dr. Chen served as their spokesperson. Dr. Walsh, the committee has reviewed your case and the unique circumstances surrounding your relationship with the Thompson family. While we acknowledge the extraordinary nature of your situation, we cannot ignore the fact that professional boundaries were crossed. Emma felt her heart sinking. However, Doctor, Chen continued, we also cannot ignore the exceptional outcome of Jake Thompson's case, or the testimony we've received from other families about your dedication and skill as a pediatrician. She paused, and Emma saw something that might have been a small smile cross her mentor's face. The committee has decided to issue a formal reprimand which will be placed in your file. You'll also be required to complete additional training in professional ethics, but you will not lose your medical license, and you will be permitted to return to active duty immediately. Emma felt her knees go weak with relief. However, Dr. Chen added, you will no longer be permitted to treat any member of the Thompson family in a professional capacity. That relationship must remain purely personal going forward. Emma nodded, understanding the compromise. She could keep her career, but she'd have to choose between her professional responsibilities and her personal relationships. As the hearing concluded and Emma gathered her things, Dr. Chen approached her privately. For what it's worth, the older woman said quietly, I think you made the right choices. Not professionally, but humanly. Sometimes being human is more important than being perfect. 2 months passed. Emma returned to work, but found herself reassigned to different rotations, different patients, different responsibilities that kept her away from the pediatric ward where she'd built her career. The formal reprimand in her file meant that advancement opportunities were limited, and some colleagues still treated her with barely concealed disapproval. But she had her family. She had Ryan and Jake, and that made everything else bearable. Or it did until Jake got sick again. It started with a simple cold that wouldn't go away. Then came the fever, the weakness, the same frightening symptoms that had brought them to the hospital 4 months earlier. Ryan rushed Jake to the emergency room, but when they asked for Dr. Walsh, they were told she was no longer permitted to treat Jake as a patient. I don't care about hospital politics, Ryan said firmly to Dr. Rodriguez, who'd been assigned to Jake's case. I want Emma involved in his care. She's the only doctor who understands his medical history. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson, but Dr. Walsh is specifically prohibited from treating your son. Hospital administration was very clear about that. Ryan felt panic rising in his chest as he watched Jake's condition deteriorate. The boy was asking for Aunt Emma, becoming agitated when told she couldn't be his doctor anymore. This is insane, Ryan told Emma when she arrived at the hospital as a visitor rather than a physician. He needs you, not just medically but emotionally. You're his family. Emma felt torn between her professional obligations and her love for Jake. She could see him getting worse, could see the medical team struggling to understand the unique aspects of his case that she'd documented so carefully during his first admission. I could lose my license if I interfere, Emma said quietly, watching through the window as Jake cried for her. And Jake could die if you don't, Ryan replied. It was Jake himself who made the decision for all of them. On the third night of his hospitalization, his condition took a dramatic turn for the worse. His fever spiked to dangerous levels, and he began having seizures. The medical team couldn't stabilize him. In desperation, Dr. Rodriguez called Emma at home. "I know I'm asking you to risk your career," he said, "but I'm out of options. Jake is asking for you, and his condition is deteriorating rapidly. I need your expertise officially or unofficially." Emma didn't hesitate. She drove to the hospital and found Ryan sitting beside Jake's bed holding his son's hand while machines beeped ominously around them. "I'm here," she said simply. Together, Emma and Dr. Rodriguez worked through the night to stabilize Jake's condition. Emma's intimate knowledge of his case history combined with her understanding of his psychological needs proved crucial in developing an effective treatment plan. But word of her involvement spread quickly through the hospital. By morning, Dr. Chen was standing in Jake's room, her expression unreadable. "Dr. Walsh, you were specifically instructed not to treat this patient." Emma stood up straight, prepared to face the consequences of her choice. Jake was dying. I couldn't stand by and do nothing, even though treating him could cost you your career, especially because of that. Some things are more important than career advancement. Chen studied Emma's face, then looked at Jake, who was finally sleeping peacefully with his fever broken and his vital signs stabilized. "Dr. Rodriguez tells me that Jake's condition improved dramatically once you became involved in his care. He credits your intervention with saving the boy's life." Emma said nothing, waiting for judgment. "The hospital administration is going to ask me to recommend your immediate termination." Dr. Chen continued. "Willful violation of a direct order, disregard for professional boundaries, insubordination." Emma felt her heart sinking again. "But I'm not going to do that," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Instead, I'm going to recommend that the Ethics Committee revisit its previous decision. This case has demonstrated that sometimes family relationships trump professional boundaries, and that exceptional circumstances require exceptional responses." She moved closer to Emma, speaking too quietly for Ryan to hear. "I also received a call this morning from the parents of 12 other children you've treated over the years. They've organized a petition supporting you, demanding that the hospital recognize your exceptional contributions to pediatric medicine. It seems you've made quite an impression on the families you've worked with." Emma felt tears threatening. "Dr. Chenwan, you made the right choice, Emma. You always have. Sometimes being a great doctor means being willing to sacrifice your career to save a life. That's exactly the kind of physician we need more of, not fewer." The final ethics hearing was very different from the first. This time, Emma faced a room full of families whose children she'd treated, colleagues who spoke about her dedication and skill, and administrators who'd reviewed her entire career record. The committee's decision was unanimous. All previous reprimands would be removed from Emma's file. She would be reinstated to her previous position with full privileges, and new guidelines would be established for cases involving familial relationships between medical staff and patients. Dr. Walsh, Dr. Chen announced the committee has also voted to offer you the position of Director of Pediatric Trauma Therapy, a new department that will focus on cases involving psychological as well as medical intervention. Emma stared in shock. Not only was her career restored, but she was being promoted to a position that would allow her to help other families facing the kind of complex trauma Jake had experienced. "The position comes with one condition," Dr. Chen added with a slight smile. "You'll be required to treat any member of your own family who needs medical care. Professional boundaries in exceptional circumstances are sometimes meant to be crossed." 6 months later, the new Department of Pediatric Trauma Therapy was thriving under Emma's leadership. She'd assembled a team of physicians, therapists, and social workers who specialized in cases where medical treatment needed to be combined with psychological and emotional healing. Jake had become something of a poster child for the program, appearing in hospital newsletters as an example of innovative treatment approaches. His story, carefully sanitized to protect his privacy, demonstrated how family involvement and emotional healing could be crucial components of medical recovery. But the real success wasn't professional. It was personal. Emma had found her place not just in the hospital hierarchy, but in Ryan and Jake's daily life. She kept clothes at their apartment, had her own key, knew where everything belonged in their kitchen. Jake called her Mama Emma, now a title that honored both his birth mother and his found mother, without diminishing either. Ryan had grown too working through his guilt about Lily's death with the help of a therapist Emma recommended. He'd learned to talk about his wife without drowning in regret, to celebrate her memory without being paralyzed by grief. And slowly, carefully, he and Emma had built something that was entirely their own. "I want to show you something," Ryan said one evening after Jake had gone to bed. He led Emma to his bedroom and pulled out a small wooden box from his dresser drawer. Inside was Lily's engagement ring, the simple solitaire diamond that Ryan had chosen when they were both young and broke, and convinced that love was enough to solve any problem. "I've been carrying this around for 4 years, Ryan said quietly. "First because I couldn't bear to look at it, then because I didn't know what to do with it." Emma touched the ring gently, understanding its significance. "I'm not asking you to wear Lily's ring," Ryan continued. "You're not Lily, and I don't want you to be. But I wanted you to see it, to know that I'm ready to let go of the past and build something new." He reached into the box again and pulled out a different ring, a simple band with 3 small diamonds. "This is for you, for Emma, for the woman who saved my son's life and taught me how to love again, for the person who made our family complete in ways I never thought possible." Emma looked at the ring, then at Ryan's face, seeing love and hope and certainty there. "Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to be Jake's mom officially. I'm asking you to be my partner in everything. I'm asking you to let us love you for the rest of our lives." Emma thought about her lonely childhood, her years of feeling incomplete, the emptiness she'd carried until the night a sick little boy called her mommy, and changed everything. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, to all of it." When they told Jake the next morning over butterfly pancakes, Emma had finally mastered Lily's recipe. His response was immediate and enthusiastic. "Finally," he exclaimed, throwing his arms around both of them. "I was wondering when you guys were going to figure that out." The wedding planning was simple, because none of them wanted anything elaborate. A small ceremony at the hospital chapel, where they'd met, followed by a reception in the same room where Emma had first held Jake during his therapy sessions. Emma's adoptive parents, who had initially been skeptical of her relationship with Ryan, came to embrace not just him, but the entire story of how their family had formed. They loved Jake immediately, and he loved having grandparents who spoiled him appropriately. The guest list included colleagues from the hospital, neighbors from Ryan's apartment building, and Jake's entire second-grade class, whom he'd insisted needed to be invited because they'd heard so much about Aunt Emma. Dr. Chen performed the ceremony, having been ordained online specifically for the occasion. "It seems fitting," she said, "for the person who helped bring you together to make it official." Lily's memory was honored throughout the ceremony. An empty chair with her photograph sat in the front row. Jake's idea. During the vows, both Emma and Ryan spoke about the importance of honoring the past while embracing the future. "Lily gave me the greatest gift of my life when she gave me." Jake, Ryan said, his voice thick with emotion. "And now, Emma is giving me the second greatest gift by choosing to love us both." Emma's vows focused on family, on the miracle of finding people who choose to love you exactly as you are. "I spent 32 years feeling incomplete," she said, looking at Jake and Ryan. "But I wasn't incomplete. I was just waiting for my family to find me." Jake had insisted on giving a speech during the reception, standing on a chair so everyone could see him. "My first mum was really good at making me laugh," he announced to the gathered crowd. "And my second mum is really good at making me feel better when I'm scared. And my dad is good at taking care of both of us. So I think we're going to be really happy together." The simplicity and honesty of his words brought tears to every eye in the room. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Emma found herself standing in the hospital chapel where she'd married Ryan just hours earlier. Jake was asleep in Ryan's arms, exhausted from the excitement of the day. "Any regrets?" Ryan asked quietly. Emma looked at her husband and the child who was now officially her son, and felt nothing but gratitude. "Just one," she said. Ryan looked concerned. "I regret that Lily never got to meet me. I think we would have been great friends." Ryan kissed her forehead gently. "I think she knows. I think somehow she sent us to each other." And standing there in the quiet chapel, surrounded by flowers and the lingering warmth of celebration, Emma felt a presence that might have been imagination, or might have been something more. A sense of approval, of blessing, of a love that transcended death and found ways to continue in new forms. Don't go anywhere. The most beautiful part of this story is still to come. What happens when a found family grows even bigger? 1 year after their wedding, Emma and Ryan had settled into the rhythm of married life with an ease that surprised them both. Emma's work at the hospital had evolved into something she'd never imagined possible, a career that fulfilled her intellectually while still allowing her to be present for her family. Jake, now 9 years old, had grown into a confident, happy child who spoke openly about having 2 moms, one who watched over him from heaven and one who helped him with homework and made him breakfast every morning. But it was during a routine family dinner that Jake made an announcement that would change everything again. "I want a baby sister," he declared, setting down his fork with the seriousness of someone making an important proclamation. Emma and Ryan exchanged glances across the table, a conversation passing between them without words. "That's a pretty big decision, buddy," Ryan said carefully. "Why a sister specifically?" "Because I already know how to be a big brother to a sister. Plus, girls are smarter than boys, so she could help me with math when I get to the hard stuff." Emma laughed, but inside she felt a familiar ache. She and Ryan had talked about having children together, but at 34, Emma was aware that her fertility window was narrowing. They'd discussed it abstractly someday in the future, when things Bergsund were more settled. But hearing Jake's innocent request made the possibility feel immediate and urgent. That night after Jake was asleep, Emma and Ryan sat on the couch in their living room. They'd moved to a larger apartment after the wedding, talking seriously about expanding their family. "I want to try," Emma said quietly. "I want to give Jake a sibling, and I want to experience pregnancy, childbirth, raising a baby with you. Are you sure your career is finally where you want it to be? A baby would change everything again." Emma smiled. "Everything's been changing since the night I met you two, and every change has been for the better." They started trying immediately with Jake's enthusiastic support and complete lack of understanding about the actual mechanics of baby making. He drew pictures of their family with an extra stick figure labeled Baby Sister and asked weekly if there was any baby news yet. For 6 months, the answer was no. Emma tried not to let disappointment overwhelm her, but each negative pregnancy test felt like another confirmation that her body had other plans for her life. "Maybe we should look into fertility treatments," Ryan suggested after another month passed without success. "Or adoption. Jake was adopted by love, in a way. Maybe that's how our next child will come to us too." But Emma felt a deep need to try biological pregnancy first. Not because adoption would be second best, but because she wanted to experience the full journey of bringing life into the world with Ryan. The pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 18 months after their wedding. Emma stared at the plastic stick in disbelief, then joy, then terror. At 35, she was considered a geriatric pregnancy. By medical standards, a term she found both insulting and terrifying. The risks were higher, the monitoring more intensive, the chances of complications increased. But when she told Ryan and Jake the news, their joy was so complete and overwhelming that her fears took a back seat to celebration. "I'm going to be the best big brother ever," Jake announced, immediately starting a list of everything he needed to teach the baby. How to tie shoes, how to read, how to remember mom first, so the baby knows she's part of our family too. The pregnancy progressed normally at first. Emma continued working, though she reduced her patient load and delegated more administrative responsibilities to her team. Ryan became even more protective than usual, insisting on driving her to every appointment and researching pregnancy nutrition with the intensity of someone writing a doctoral thesis. But at 20 weeks, during what should have been a routine ultrasound, they received news that changed everything. "There's an issue with the baby's heart," the maternal fetal specialist explained, pointing to areas on the ultrasound screen that meant nothing to Emma and Ryan, but everything to the trained eye. "It's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. It's a serious condition that will require multiple surgeries after birth." Emma felt the room spinning around her. As a pediatrician, she knew exactly what HLHS meant. Multiple open-heart surgeries, months in the hospital, no guarantee of survival, and if the baby did survive, a lifetime of medical complications. "What are our options?" Ryan asked, his voice steady despite the devastating news. The specialist outlined 3 possibilities: termination comfort care after birth, or an aggressive surgical approach that offered hope, but no promises. Emma and Ryan drove home in silence, both lost in their own thoughts about impossible choices and unwanted possibilities. That night they sat Jake down and explained the situation in terms he could understand. "The baby's heart didn't grow right," Emma said gently. "She's going to need operations to help her heart work better." Jake absorbed this information with the seriousness he brought to all important matters. "Like I needed help when I was sick?" he asked. "Similar, but more serious. The doctors might not be able to fix everything." Jake thought about this for a long moment. "But we're still going to love her no matter what, right? Even if her heart is broken?" Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to love her no matter what. Then we fight for her. That's what families do. We fight for each other." Claire Lily Thompson was born on a snowy December morning 6 weeks before her due date. She was tiny, barely 4 pounds, but she was perfect in every way except for the heart condition that would define the first years of her life. Emma held her daughter for exactly 3 minutes before the medical team whisked her away to the cardiac intensive care unit. 3 minutes to memorize her daughter's face, to whisper, "I love you," into tiny ears, to promise that they would fight for her no matter what came next. The next 6 months were a blur of hospital rooms, surgical procedures, and the kind of medical crisis that Emma had helped other families navigate, but had never experienced herself. Jake adapted to the routine with remarkable grace, doing homework in hospital waiting rooms and making friends with the nursing staff. Ryan took a leave of absence from work to be present for every procedure, every setback, every small victory. Emma continued working part-time, finding that her professional expertise helped her advocate for Claire, while her maternal emotions threatened to overwhelm her. Claire's first surgery took place when she was 6 days old, the second at 3 months, the third at 6 months. Each procedure carried enormous risks, and each recovery period brought new challenges. But Claire was a fighter. She responded well to treatment, met developmental milestones despite her medical challenges, and charmed every doctor and nurse who cared for her. "She has her mom's determination," Dr. Rodriguez observed after Claire's 3rd surgery was deemed a success. And her brother's smile. Jake had indeed bonded completely with his sister, reading to her during her hospital stays, and insisting on helping with her care whenever possible. He learned to be gentle with her medical equipment, to recognize when she was having a good day versus a difficult one, to make her laugh when she was cranky. "I told you girls were smarter," he said proudly when Claire began reaching developmental milestones ahead of schedule, despite her medical challenges. "She's going to help me with calculus someday." 1 year after Claire's birth, the family gathered in the same hospital chapel where Emma and Ryan had married to baptize their daughter. It was a celebration not just of faith, but of survival of the power of family to overcome impossible odds. Claire wore a christening gown that had belonged to Lily. Ryan had saved it, along with a few other precious items. Jake held his sister throughout the ceremony, whispering to her about the grandmother she would never meet, but whose love surrounded them all. "Today we celebrate not just Claire's baptism," Dr. Chen said, having agreed to officiate this ceremony as well, but the completion of a family that began with tragedy and grew through love, determination, and the belief that every life is worth fighting for. As they left the chapel, Emma carried Claire, while Ryan and Jake walked ahead, pointing out decorations in the hospital lobby that had been put up for the holidays. "She's going to be okay," Emma whispered to her daughter, kissing the soft fuzz of hair on her tiny head. "We're all going to be okay." And for the first time since that devastating ultrasound 18 months earlier, Emma truly believed it. 2 years after Claire's birth, the Thompson family had settled into a rhythm that accommodated regular medical checkups, ongoing therapy sessions, and the normal chaos of raising 2 children. Claire was thriving beyond all medical predictions. Her heart, while still requiring monitoring and eventual additional surgeries, was functioning well enough for her to live an essentially normal life. Jake, now 11, had grown into his role as protective big brother with remarkable maturity. He helped Claire with physical therapy exercises, read her stories that featured brave princesses overcoming obstacles, and patiently answered her endless questions about everything from dinosaurs to why the sky was blue. Emma's work had evolved again this time to include research on family-centered care for children with complex medical conditions. Her own experience as both physician and mother of a medically fragile child had given her unique insights that were being published in medical journals and presented at conferences around the country. Ryan had returned to work, but with a different perspective on work-life balance. His brush with potentially losing both his wife during pregnancy complications and his daughter during multiple surgeries had taught him that success meant being present for the moments that mattered, not just accumulating achievements. On a warm Saturday afternoon in June, the family was having a picnic in Discovery Park, the same location where Ryan had proposed to Emma 3 years earlier. Claire, now walking steadily and chattering in sentences that mostly made sense, was fascinated by the ducks at the pond. "Duck, duck, duck!" she pointed excitedly, her vocabulary still limited, but her enthusiasm unlimited. Jake held her hand carefully as they approached the water's edge, explaining in his most serious voice that they needed to be gentle with the animals. "She's going to be a veterinarian," he announced to Emma and Ryan, who were setting up their picnic blanket nearby. "She already loves animals more than people." "That's not necessarily a bad thing." Emma laughed, watching her daughter's joy at the simple pleasure of feeding ducks with breadcrumbs. As the afternoon progressed, Emma found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 3 years ago, she'd been a lonely pediatrician whose life revolved around work and little else. Now she was a wife-mother researcher and advocate whose days were full of purpose and love. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Jake hadn't gotten sick that night?" she asked Ryan as they watched their children play. "Never," Ryan said immediately. "I refuse to imagine a world where we didn't find each other. Some things are meant to be, even if the path to them is complicated." Emma thought about Lily, about the sister she'd never known, but who had shaped her life in ways that were still revealing themselves. Claire had Lily's stubborn determination, Jake had inherited her artistic talents, and Emma had found her own way of channeling the maternal instincts that Lily had possessed naturally. I think she knows, Emma said quietly. Lily, I think she knows how the story turned out. I know she does, Ryan replied. Sometimes when Claire laughs, I hear an echo of Lily's laugh. When Jake draws pictures of our family, he always includes her. She's still here with us, just differently. That evening after the children were asleep, Emma and Ryan sat on their apartment balcony looking out at the lights of Seattle spread below them. Claire's baby monitor crackled softly in the background, the sound of her steady breathing, a constant reassurance that she was okay, that they had made it through another day successfully. Dr. Chen offered me the department chair position, Emma said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Ryan looked at her with surprise and pride. Emma, that's incredible. You deserve it. All the work you've done, the research, the program development, I told her, I needed to think about it. The position would mean more administrative responsibilities, less direct patient care, more travel for conferences and speaking engagements. And you're not sure you want that? Emma considered her answer carefully. I'm not sure I want anything that takes me away from this. She gestured toward the apartment where their children slept safely. I spent so many years building a career because I thought that was all I had. Now I have everything I never knew I wanted. Ryan took her hand. Whatever you decide, we'll make it work. Your career matters. The research you're doing is helping families all over the country. But if you want to scale back, if you want to prioritize family time, that's okay too. Emma squeezed his fingers. I think I can do both. Accept the position, but restructure it to allow for more work-life integration. Bring some of the conferences here to Seattle. Focus on research that can be done collaboratively with other institutions. You always find a way to have everything. Ryan smiled. It's one of the things I love about you. They sat quietly for a while, listening to the sounds of the city and their children's peaceful breathing through the monitor. Jake asked me something interesting today, Emma said eventually. What's that? He asked if we thought Claire would want to know about her first grandma, meaning Lily. He's worried that because Claire never met her, she might feel left out of that part of our family story. Ryan's chest tightened with emotion. Even at 11, Jake was thinking about family dynamics with sensitivity beyond his years. What did you tell him? That we would make sure Claire grows up knowing all the love that surrounds her, including love from people she's never met. That family is bigger than just the people who are physically present. He's going to be an amazing man someday. Ryan said. Lily would be so proud of who he's becoming. She'd be proud of all of us, of the family we built from the pieces of the one that was broken. Emma thought about the 3 years since that night when Ryan had carried a sick Jake into her emergency room. Every challenge they'd faced, the ethics hearings, the professional complications, the high-risk pregnancy. Claire's medical issues had made them stronger as individuals and as a family. Do you think we're done? Emma asked quietly. Done with what? Growing our family? 2 kids, busy careers. Claire's ongoing medical needs. Maybe we should be satisfied with what we have. Ryan looked at her carefully. Are you saying you want more children, or you're worried about wanting more children? Emma laughed. I don't know. Ask me in a year when Claire is more stable and Jake is in middle school and I have some perspective on whether we're thriving or just surviving. Fair enough. Though I will say that watching you be a mother has been one of the great privileges of my life. Whatever we decide about the future, you should know that you're exactly the mother Jake needed and exactly the mother Claire needs. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for giving me the chance to be their mom. For seeing me as family before I even knew what family meant. 5 years after that first night in the emergency room, the Thompson family returned to the hospital for Claire's final scheduled heart surgery. At 3 years old, she was strong enough for the procedure that would hopefully eliminate the need for further interventions until she was an adult. Jake, now 13 and taller than Emma, appointed himself Claire's primary entertainer during the long wait before surgery. He'd brought a bag full of books, coloring supplies, and small toys to keep her distracted from the medical atmosphere around them. "Tell me the butterfly story," Claire requested, as they waited snuggled together on a hospital bed that seemed enormous compared to her tiny frame. Jake launched into the familiar tale that had evolved over the years from Lily's simple lullaby into an elaborate adventure story featuring a brave butterfly who helped other creatures find their way home. "And then what happened to the butterfly?" Claire asked, even though she knew the ending by heart. "She found her family again," Jake said, looking meaningfully at Emma and Ryan, "because love always finds a way home, even when it has to fly very far to get there." Emma watched her children and felt overwhelmed by gratitude for the unexpected turns that had brought them all together. Jake's original illness had been the catalyst for everything meeting Ryan, discovering her connection to Lily, finding her own capacity for love and family. Dr. Rodriguez, now graying but still energetic, stopped by to check on Claire before her surgery. "How's our miracle patient doing?" he asked, examining Claire's chart with satisfaction. "Ready to get this over with so I can go home and play with my dolls," Claire announced, with the matter-of-fact confidence of a child who had spent enough time in hospitals to know that doctors were just people who helped her feel better. "That's the attitude we like to hear." Dr. Rodriguez laughed. "And Jake, how are you handling being a big brother to our VIP patient?" "It's the best job ever," Jake said seriously. "She's going to be a doctor someday, just like Mama Emma. She already knows how to listen to heartbeats with a stethoscope." Emma's throat tightened with emotion. Even at 13, Jake still called her Mama Emma, a title that honored both his birth mother and his chosen mother without diminishing either. The surgery took 4 hours. Emma and Ryan waited in the family lounge, taking turns pacing and sitting, drinking terrible hospital coffee and trying to read magazines without absorbing any of the words. Jake alternated between homework and entertaining other families in the waiting room with card tricks he'd learned online. Even in his worry about Claire, he instinctively reached out to comfort other people facing their own medical crises. When Dr. Martinez, the cardiac surgeon, finally emerged with news, his smile told them everything they needed to know before he spoke a word. "The surgery went perfectly," he announced. "Claire's heart is functioning exactly as we hoped. Barring any unforeseen complications, this should be her last cardiac surgery until she's an adult. She's going to live a completely normal life." Emma collapsed into Ryan's arms, tears of relief streaming down her face. Jake whooped with joy and immediately started texting his friends the good news. 3 hours later, they were allowed to see Claire in the cardiac ICU. She was sleeping peacefully, surrounded by monitors and equipment that no longer seemed threatening, but protective. "She looks so small," Jake whispered carefully, touching his sister's hand. "She's stronger than she looks," Emma replied. "Just like you were when you were her age." Ryan wrapped his arms around his family, and they stood there in the quiet ICU, surrounded by the sounds of healing and hope. As they prepared to leave that evening, Claire would remain in the hospital for several more days of monitoring. Emma took one last look around the cardiac unit, where they'd spent so many anxious hours over the past 3 years. "Thank you," she whispered to the medical team, to the building itself, to the universe that had brought them through another crisis successfully. In the parking garage, Jake asked a question that surprised them both. "Do you think First Mom knew? When she was sick, did she know that you would find us someday and take care of us?" Emma and Ryan exchanged glances, both thinking about the mysterious ways that love persists and finds new forms. I think Emma said carefully that people who love us don't really leave us. They just love us differently. And maybe somewhere Lily knew that her family would be okay, because love has a way of multiplying instead of dividing. Jake nodded with the satisfaction of someone receiving an answer that made sense. "Good," he said. "I like thinking that she helped bring you to us." As they drove home through the Seattle streets, Emma reflected on the 5 years that had transformed her from a lonely doctor into a wife, mother, and leader in her field. She'd learned that families could form in the most unexpected ways, that love was more powerful than loss, and that sometimes the greatest gifts came disguised as crises. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Chen Hurd. "Claire's surgery went well. Department chair position is yours whenever you're ready. No rush, family first, career second. That's what you taught us all." Emma smiled and put the phone away without responding. Tomorrow she would think about career decisions and professional responsibilities. Tonight she would simply be grateful for the miracle of connection that had brought 4 separate people together into something beautiful and whole and permanent. Jake fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the emotions of the day. Ryan reached over and took Emma's hand, their wedding rings catching the light from the dashboard. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For saying yes to the impossible, for believing in us when we were just a broken man and a sick little boy, for becoming exactly the mother and wife we needed." Emma squeezed his hand, thinking about the long journey from that first night in the emergency room to this moment of quiet contentment. "Thank you for showing me what family means, for teaching me that love doesn't replace love, it expands it." And as they pulled into the parking lot of their apartment building, Emma felt a presence that might have been imagination or might have been something more. A sense of approval, of blessing, of a love that had transcended death and found new ways to flourish. Sometimes the most beautiful families aren't the ones we're born into. They're the ones we choose, the ones we fight for, the ones we build from hope and determination and the belief that everyone deserves to be loved completely. The Thompson family was living proof that miracles still happen, that love finds a way, and that sometimes the most broken moments create the most beautiful beginnings. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, if it reminded you that families come together in the most unexpected ways, and that love has the power to heal the impossible, please hit that subscribe button for our channel. We bring you stories like this one that restore your faith in the beautiful complexity of human connection. Share this with someone who needs to remember that their story isn't over. The best chapters might still be unwritten. And drop a heart in the comments if you believe in second chances and the miraculous ways that broken people can become whole families. Because sometimes when we think we're at the end of our story, we're actually at the beginning of the most beautiful chapter we never saw coming. Thanks for watching, and remember, love always finds a way home.